Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Ryan with Rigs of Death Metal. Today my guest is Dev Gohil of Ereshkigal, and as well as his self-named YouTube channel, which is fantastic. It's a little bit similar with ours, just more focused on the black metal tangent with lots of guitar lessons to boot, which is way more contributing to society than what I do. But without further ado, Dev, what is up, man?
How's it going? Happy to be on board.
Hopefully I didn't butcher all the pronunciations too badly there for that intro, but
This is
I'm
fine. It's completely fine.
yeah, I'm thrilled to have you on here, man. Full disclosure, I just found your channel within maybe the last 3 or 4 months, maybe something like that. Found I think first your interview with Ted or Nocturno Culto from Dark Throne. And I've watched several others since then, like Silent Oz from Dimmu and just a bunch of my favorite black metal musicians. And then I love some of your gear videos, your lessons, super cool shit. Which you delve into some of my favorite things about black metal, which is just some of like the cool some of the cool chord shapes and intervals and kind of dealing with a lot of the cool harmony and stuff that goes on with black metal. There's actually some, really interesting stuff going on with a lot of bands. Uh, Real quick, kind of, we'll don't worry, folks at home, we'll get into gear. But what kind of did you just kind of see maybe a little bit of a gap in cool guitar lessons catered to black metal, or what kind of led you into going down that avenue? What inspired starting the channel and everything?
Yeah, so with starting the channel, it was kind of like a reflection of what I needed when I was 14. And you get into black metal and then it's kind of like, okay, let me try learning some of the songs and there's no resources and all the tabs are terrible and everything has to be worked out by ear. And then when you're new to guitar, and new to playing black metal, it's kind of difficult to jump into when you're new to all of this. So that was the thing. I was thinking like, hang on, there's got to be some kids, teenagers, or even adults out there who are wanting to learn extreme metal and black metal specifically, but there's no proper resource or any real kind of guidance out there. So I was kind of like, all right, cool. Let me do it then and try and spearhead this in a way. And since starting the channel, like the first thing I uploaded was like a guitar cover of Chasing Dragons by 1349, and I know now that a lot of it is not 100% correct, but it was a video to test the waters, and then over time I just started like uploading and uploading, and then it got to that video where it was the five types of black metal guitar riffs and how to play them. And then that kind of spearheaded the channel in a really cool direction. Then I just kind of took it from there really, and then just focused more on trying to build a good foundation of viewers and subscribers, and then just take it from there because I knew like the end goal was to produce black metal guitar content where it's instructional and people can learn from it, some kind of education. And then going from there, it kind of just, slowly but surely had its interesting route of progression, let's say. And then I kind of took it into the more gear-focused route as well because people were asking me, okay, what's a good guitar for black metal? What's a good amp for black metal? And and trying to answer those questions that way. So it was really a case of not well outside of my goals and ambitions and what I want to do with the channel. It's also the same thing where it's like people out there are like have their questions and I'm there to answer them. So that was the kind of that was the main inspiration goal for the channel. Was like I was thinking about myself as a young kid being like, okay, what's what's a black metal chord, for example? How do you actually play it? How do you tremolo pick properly with correct technique? Because I didn't get much guidance for this kind of stuff, so I thought, okay, let me guide guide people on what I've learned over the years. And that's really how it all started, and how I channeled everything.
Gotcha. Do you come from like a musically academic kind of background or anything like that? Or are you self-taught?
Both. I mean, I studied music for 5 years in music college and uni, and that helped a lot when it came to understanding the theory behind what I was playing, and also trying to build upon what I learned. But when it comes to like all the chord shapes and the pure black metal style playing, most of that was, at least like 90% of that was self-taught. Because the guitar teachers at the time that I had, in high school and college and stuff, none of them were into black metal. So it was kind of like a lot of trial and error over the years.
They had zero riffs.
Like one of the guitar teachers I had in college was Charlie Griffiths, who played in Haken, and he's got some really really great riffs. He's a really great guitar player. But again, but with his playing, it was completely different to this extreme ferocious black metal style of
Sure.
playing I go for.
It's interesting too, isn't it, that even though there is some by some parameters more technical music than a lot of black metal and death metal, stuff like uh, Mahavishnu Orchestra and Frank Zappa, stuff like that. But some of those musicians would have a hard time playing what could be a seemingly simple black metal or death metal riff just because the techniques are so drastically different. It's not that it's like necessarily theoretically dense or like, super, crazy layered kind of stuff harmonically, but the simple technical, I guess, mechanics of tremolo picking a chord, is like something that a jazz musician probably would never have even thought to do.
Yeah, yeah, it's a kind of like almost like a left hand versus right hand kind of dilemma.
Yeah,
Like if you want to get a guitar, for example, and just if you see like with more jazz style playing, there's a lot of like finger playing and stuff,
hmm,
and different chord shapes as well, and they've got lots of fluidity in the left hand. Like even I can't do some of these like crazy jazz chords, like
sure.
going down 13th chords and ninth chords and stuff. But with the a lot of the extreme metal stuff, a lot of it, especially with like death metal, is kind of pattern focused in a way with like diminished runs and certain scales. But with the black metal stuff, especially, a lot of it is to do with the right hand. Um, Especially because like a lot of jazz guitarists won't be tremolo picking 16th note
Yeah,
palm move, for example, or even tremolo picking certain chords. So there's a completely different technique in the right hand that has to be built up. But the thing is, it's like with all musical styles, there's a kind of sacrifice. Because if a heavy metal player or a death metal player were to play some like funk or like pop riffs on
hmm,
guitar or whatever, because of the left hand muting and the kind of percussive staccato nature of certain extreme metal riffs, you might not get that kind of certain openness and fluidity
hmm,
that you would from playing like pop licks or even like blues licks and stuff. Is because we have to focus on smaller gaps, smaller subdivisions within the music, and that requires a different level of technique and tightness as opposed to someone who's working with you know, bigger subdivisions within the bar. So
right.
it's a very, very give and take scenario. Because sometimes when you need that little kind of more relaxed style playing, like in reggae or something, an extreme metal guitarist will play on the beat exactly, and it's kind of harder to have that slightly relaxed,
Yeah,
off, slightly behind the beat style of playing. Like, of course, there's guitarists that can do everything and out there, but we're talking like the general kind of techniques
sure.
needed. It's very, very catered to each style. It's a very, very interesting one. But yeah, it's like I've been focusing solely on the extreme metal stuff for the good part of a decade now when it comes to my guitar playing.
Hmm.
That I haven't even it's got to the point where I haven't even learned like a general pop song or anything like that since like my university or even college days.
Yeah,
Everything has just been so focused in this direction for the past however long.
gotcha.
Uh,
Kind of expanding on something that you mentioned there briefly about people asking you more gear-centric questions specific to black metal. Um, Kind of two great examples sitting behind you as far as an amp for black metal. What are some tonal characteristics that you look for a black metal amp?
right, so for me, I'm more in that I'm more in the Engel camp at the moment. The reason why I like the Engel amps and Engels in general is because they do everything that I want from an amp, basically. When it comes to tonal characteristics, what I love about the Fireball is how abrasive it is. And it's got a unique kind of darkness to the sound. It's got this very smooth, rounded low end. But what I like is a lot of kind of mid-focused, high mid-focused treble, I guess. Like I've got my Marshall JVM plugged in at the moment, and even this amp is really cool. Just getting it connected. Yeah, cool. But yeah, even this, even even the Marshall, for example, just turn it down a bit. But what I normally go for is this very present mid-heavy tone. But the thing is, I use a lot of palm mutes in my playing, um, because I kind of like that extreme black thrash style of playing. So yeah, it's very, very mid-pronounced, kind of forward mid-tone, but with enough presence and enough high end to get that kind of more trebly, piercing black metal sounds. Because that's what I like. Because I want a bit of everything. I
Hmm.
want that kind of chunky Death Cult Armageddon, Dimmu Borgir kind of low end guitar tone. Same with Insorte. But then I also want that kind of almost like Thorn style high end where you've got all the notes kind of singing out as well. And yeah, that's why I really like the Marshalls and the Engels is because they have that
Sure.
already. Because with the PVs and EVHs, I find that there's too much of this kind of fizzy high end that I personally don't enjoy too much because the way I play, I beat the hell out of my strings. I try to get as much from the guitar as possible, and I find that they are better for people who have a less heavy hand than I do. Um, yeah, so that's why I've kind of gone into this Engel camp is because of the way I play, because of the sound I want, and even the package in the amps. Like I don't really go through any pedals or anything. I don't like to use any pedals. I just want to go straight into the guitar, into the amp,
Yeah.
play. And it's really great that these newer Engels, especially the Fireball, have the inbuilt noise gate because then I can just plug in and go. And the Fireball has all of the gain that I need from the sound. I don't want it to be like ice pick type either. I want it to be a little bit more loose, a little bit more free in the sound, not overly compressed. And the Engel has got all of the high end and that mid focus punch that I need as well. So really, when it comes to like tonal characteristics, is kind of like I guess in some ways a more edgy 2000s era Dimmu Gear kind of guitar tone, bit more knife edge.
Right.
Um, punishing kind of guitar tone. Yeah, I like a lot of like to the guitar playing as well, and that's why I use the Engels and the Marshalls, because I get that and it just works. Tone wise, when you're talking like pickups and stuff as well. For the past year and a bit, I've been able to play guitars regularly with active pickups, and my main guitar for like live shows and stuff is this Razorback 7 string, and this Fishman Fluence Modern with the ceramic pickup just does everything I need. Because the way this is EQ'd is very, very high mid focus. This has got the ice picky precision that I need, and then that's why it compensates. That's why it uh, collaborates so well with the Marshalls and the Engels that have that darkness, that kind of more low end mid focus sound. Because I get all the brightness from the pickup
Hmm.
and the pick attack, and then I get all the darkness from the amps, and then it just works so well
Sure.
for live shows and even just for YouTube videos. But that's usually what I go for tonally with the black metal tone, because I don't like the I think it's 2025 and society has gone past the need for the thin fizzy guitar tones in black metal because we've just got to build a better standard now.
That's a that's an interesting point too. The was it the necro style of recording and guitar tones? Uh, what are your thoughts? I mean, obviously, I think we kind of know off of your previous statement, but how do you feel in general about that philosophy and that mental attitude towards the old style?
Yeah, I get it. The thing is, I completely understand it. The reason why that happened is because you know musicians back in the day were using what they've got, and it's totally cool to do that kind of thing now. If you want to, but for me, I'm not the biggest fan of it nowadays. Because if you listen to like early Dark Throne and even like the Thorns demos and early Mayhem, it all makes sense because it's what they were using, what they had at the time. Whereas if someone's using a drum program with a thin fizzy guitar tone that they've got from an amp, because of the sonic qualities of drum programs and the way they sound on a DAW is always going to be kind of too nice for a guitar tone that's like plugged into to an amp and you're picking up from the amp. So if you want to go for the necro sound, you've got to go all in and use purely acoustic and almost live equipment
Yeah.
because it works better for it. But if you're going to be using drum programs and DAWs and like cool amp software, then it's probably a much better idea to go for the best sound that you can get from the current equipment that you have. Because when it comes to my recordings, like I engineered um, Sojin, the first Ereshkigal release. Our old singer at the time recorded all the vocals where he lives at the time, and all of the guitars and all the drum programming was done here, um, basically. But the thing is like we kind of knew that it had to sound right for the band. So that's why I knew I didn't want to get like an overly polished drum sound. So and the only drum program I had at the time was Logic's inbuilt drum kit,
Mm.
like Logic X, the heavy kit. So that's all the drums were done like that, and all of the guitar tones were all Logic presets because I had no um, amp software at the time. So it was the Maelstrom Logic X preset with the flanger or the tremolo taken
Huh.
off. And I was using an old Line 6 interface on that. And I've got it packed up right now, but it was my Razorback V that I used for
Okay.
all the recordings from there. And that had an EMG pickup. And that's how I got the sound. And I didn't mess around with any of the guitar EQs. The only EQing that was done really when it comes to like the post-processed guitar tones the tones in general were the drums, the vocals, and a little bit and actually a lot of it for the bass. So
Hmm.
it's a case of using what you have, but also understanding what you have. Because if you're using drum software, it's got to be tight. Your playing has to be tight. If your um, if your playing isn't tight and you've got this quantized drum kit and you want to go for the necro sound, it's gonna sound really bad.
Yeah.
Because if your playing isn't tight with the drums, then it's going to sound bad. The thing is, it's like if you get away, you can get away with drums that are not very tight or not to the grid if the guitars are still tight with the drums.
Yeah.
But if the drums are a million percent tight and your guitars aren't tight, then it's going to sound really bad. And then it's also the case if you've got to level it correctly as well. Because even with the early stuff, like even if we take like Demisteries, for example, that's a very, very well produced record. And the reason why it sounds necro is because it was thought from the beginning, like everything has to be kind of right and organic, but the actual real production of that was all of the layering that went on and the way it was mixed and engineered, and that was recorded in Grieg Hall in a grand orchestral kind of
Yeah.
environment. And you're never going to get that at home. You're never going to get the Greek Hall sound because you're not in Greek Hall, and you've got to be very, very aware with what you have and getting the most out of it. And that's the biggest takeaway from it. Necro sound is not bad. It just has to be done in a necro way.
Sure.
And if you want the produced sound, that's fine as well. But ultimately, it's all about the end result because there's some bad recordings out there. Bad recordings that sound really cool, like the first 1349 demo, Chaos Preferred. Like I've been listening to that a lot lately, and it's so charming. But that was recorded. You can tell there's like a kind of youthful shoddiness to it, but it worked for the sound.
Yeah.
And nothing's tight, but everything's kind of tight to each other. Because it would have a completely different sound if they had programmed drums and recorded guitars to it. So it's
Right.
it's a case of utilizing what you have, and not an all necro sound is bad. It just has to have good writing and a good enough sound that it doesn't completely burn people's ears.
Sure. Makes sense.
Yeah.
It's kind of whichever way you go, just kind of go all in, not so much half and half. I get it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and if you do go half and half, understand that you have to treat it right. Because if you're playing to super tight drums, your playing has to be tight to the
Yeah.
kit, to all of that as well. And you've got to find the right sounds that work for each drum sound as well. And yeah, I think it's really important that a lot of musicians out there understand some basic level of mix and mixing, not to the point where they need to figure out all the EQs and where everything should sit normally, but more the case of like, okay, you have a sound, what's going to work with this sound? And just like an hour before, I've been, my superior drummer completely crapped out on me, so I'm using a different drum software. So I'm just trying to figure out what's, the best levels for everything and
Yeah.
get the right velocity levels for the drum kits, the right gain levels, the right cymbal presets, for example, and adjusting the guitar and bass tones accordingly. So but it's sounding cool so far.
Nice.
But again, it takes that level of knowledge to kind of understand where the compromises are.
So if you're not using Superior Drummer now, what are you messing with?
I'm using Drums Against Humanity, which is by
Oh
Ugly.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's based on Inferno from Behemoth, his drum kit. And I was messing around on it, like even just listening to drums by themselves, and I was like, oh, I don't like this. So I found like a let's see if because I've got the project open, like what I'm using at the moment for the snare. I've just got to bring up the panel again. So in the FX, I'm using the apostasy main sound, but I'm doubling that with death brass, and that's got this really cool kind of like open kind
Mhm.
of drum sound that I go for, and I've tuned it back just by -2, and I want it to settle in right because I'm very fussy with snare sounds. I like a more kind of I like more. I like the snare to sound like an additional kind of tom in a way with very little underneath kind of snare rattle.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be like I want poof, poof, poof for the
Okay.
snare. And I find that that kind of sets in quite nicely with all the blast beats and stuff, and that's another difficult thing as well. It's like the faster your blast beats are, the harder it is to get a nice drum sound from your software because a lot of it isn't built for that. A lot of drum software isn't built for 240 BPM
Yeah.
blasts. Like I had to completely eliminate Superior Drummer's Ride when I was using it because it had so much decay to the sound that it just sounded like the ride was wobbling as opposed to being ding 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 ding,
Hmm.
and it just sounded like I can't believe that got into the final product. And if people are going to pay like $300 for this and you can't do a blast beat at 240, what's the point? So I
Hmm.
had to go back to the stock Logic snare ride and EQ that in a way. So
Wow.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's how much of a hard time I had with the equipment, well, with Superior Drum and especially its ride. Like snares and toms are great.
Yeah.
Superior Drum. Hi-hats you've got to be kind of careful with, but all the cymbals and basically the hi-hats and the rides are the biggest kind of pain when it comes to hyperblasts
Hmm.
with drum softwares. And this one's been quite good. The hardest time I've had really is getting the snare sound I'd like, but I've got one that I'm 90% happy with, so I'm still toying with it.
Gotcha.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, we did a demo video a while back for Drums Against Humanity. I think I've featured it maybe in a couple different videos. I can't remember. I thought it sounded phenomenal, and I loved Inferno's drum sounds off of the recordings and everything else. I think the only gripe I maybe had with it was it wasn't as intuitive to like quick demo like MIDI beats or something like Easy Drummer can. Um, but overall, I was really happy with the sounds. Maybe just a little bit more work you got to put into it, but as far as tonally, I loved it. But
Yeah, for sure. It's a very, very open, wide sounding drum
mhm.
kit. And that's the cool thing about Behemoth. It's like from what is it like? I think from like Thelema 6 onwards, there's never been a bad Behemoth drum sound.
Yeah.
And I really like, yeah, I really like the Evangelion drum sound.
Hmm.
And the production on the album is really, really great. And it was still, and that's what I kind of like from like just sound in general. It's like you can tell that nothing is overly polished, but it still kind of sounds right. Like if
Yeah.
you were to see if you were to be in like a Behemoth rehearsal room, it would sound of course the recorded sound is way more polished, but you can kind of tell that those would be very, very similar guitar sounds. There'd be a very, very similar drum sound
Yeah.
uh, to the recording as well, and that's what I like. That not raw, but kind of like a good room paired with like good guitar tones that just work right for the music. Not overly tight, like how it is now. Um, just a bit more kind of looseness and a bit more of these lower frequencies to kind of come through and give it a bit more weight.
Sure.
And another good example of this is Annihilation of the Wicked.
Oh yeah.
Because
Great one.
that's got this great low end sound to it, and the guitars aren't too tight. They've got this kind of like you can tell that they've kind of scooped the amps a little
Oh
bit, but
yeah.
it just sounds right for Nile. It's got that that bore kind of thing. But
No,
that's what
absolutely.
yeah, I understand that there's compromise to a mix, but I kind of don't want like I like the sound that has just enough compromise where nothing's kind of perfect in a way.
No, absolutely. It's a lot of people, a lot of armchair warriors want to try to preach things that read on forums or whatever, but they've never actually applied it themselves. Um, at the end of the day, does it sound cool? It'll work. Like there's always ways to make stuff work. People don't realize it's like, they need to get off the turn your mids up high horse, and if it works for Carl Sanders, it works for all of us.
Yeah, yeah, and the thing is like like and this is one of the kind of cruxes and one of the I don't want to say like issues or problems or anything, but it's one of the things that I can't really advise on sometimes because people ask me what's the best thing, what's the best thing. The thing is there is
Yeah.
never going to be a best.
Yeah, it's
It's
subjective.
yeah, it's all going to be subjective, and like the best is really what you have and what you can use. For me, like objectively, the best sound for live, for what I like, is the Fishman Fluence Modern with this Dean Razorback 7 and the Engel going through a good cab. Whether that be with V30 speakers or even like one of the old Marshalls. I've got a MF400 cab here, which I really love the way these three pair. But it's a case of like just use the best with what you have on a live show or recording. And if you are in the position where you have all the gear at hand for your recordings, when it comes to mics, bass amps and stuff, experiment with all of it. Because sometimes the thing that you'd never even realize would sound good will sound amazing in a mix sometimes. And that's the real hard thing with engineering and sound in general. It's like what's what's the best thing for the outcome, and ultimately it's really a case of does it sound good? Yes. Does it sound bad? It's that playing on that, is it good or is it bad kind of
Yeah.
thing. And just, simplify it, um if you simplify it to that kind of route, then it's easier to work things out. And sometimes having a little bit of a thinner guitar tone can help sometimes, because then you can get more from the bass guitar as well. And then that's another cool thing as well, is just having a really tanky, cool bass sound that really complements the kick drums and the rhythm guitars as well,
Hmm.
and just sounds just cool as hell. It just sounds
Yeah.
really great.
Yeah, if it's one thing that Demu actually taught me, probably better than any other band, just because their mixes are insanely dense. Um, I mean, any kind of orchestral elements, as soon as you throw that into a mix, it's all automatically going to be way more complicated. Um, Yet, like you mentioned earlier, their guitar is just always cut. They always sit just right. Um, Despite everything going on, where so many instruments are literally sitting in the exact same space. Um, it's more about some guitar players want to focus on making their guitar sound as huge as possible, which is so counterintuitive. You need to find and carve out your spot in the mix, and which, metal guitars, they're always going to take up a huge chunk of the sonic frequency, regardless of how much you try to focus it. Um, the mix engineer is going to wind up having to carve out a good bit and in post. It's just the way it is. But yeah, like one of the things that kind of, well, I won't be dramatic and say it irritates me or pisses me off or anything, but one of the kind of annoying things is guitar players focusing on low end in their sound. It's like it's
Mm.
cool and all, but why? It's like unless you don't have a bass player, you shouldn't really worry about that too much.
Yeah, yeah. I get that because I what I like it like but tonally is just enough low end so that you can kind of feel it in the guitar. But
Yeah,
most of that low end sound I kind of want from the bass
sure.
and the kick drums. And if you have like an overly bassy guitar tone, you lose or you lose a lot of precision. And like if on all my amps right now, like the maximum bass that I have on all of them, I mean the most bass that I have on these amps is the Powerball, and none of my bass controls are above halfway.
Yeah.
On the Fireball, the bass is just what is it like 10:30, nearly 11 o'clock, and even the Marshalls as well. It's like yeah, like bass is a bass heavy guitar tone is a difficult thing to work with. And sometimes you want to feel it just enough. The thing is that
Yeah.
you want to feel it just enough, but ultimately you want to leave the bass for the bass.
Yeah.
Those kind of like lower frequencies as well. Because I kind of like when it comes to bass sounds, I kind of like it when they have like this upper mid attack
Hmm.
bass, and that's a hard thing to work with sometimes, mix wise.
Sure.
But yeah, it's just because I like the kind of I just want that bit more kind of like piercingness.
Yeah.
Not too rounded, not overly rounded. The guitar's a little bit more like dirty frequencies in the high end, a little bit of dirty frequencies in the low, and I think I'd add so much more to the overall sound.
Right.
Um, I think these days people want that more kind of I don't know. I think people are kind of getting moving away from this perfect sound.
Yeah.
It's like everything. There's got to be a little bit of abrasiveness from the low and the high end, but just enough to appreciate it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um,
I
like
think I think it also kind of depends on the dynamics of the music.
yes,
If your riffs heavily rely on letting like a palm muted chug kind of ring out, obviously you need a lot more low end response, something like a dual rectifier or a 5150 that it will, get that thunderous kind of lows just rolling out, as opposed to, you need super compressed, very tight machine gun kind of response to where something like an Ingle, where
mm,
it's like an immediate attack. It's not going to just sit there and ring, or a Marshall, you know? Uh, I guess just whatever complements your style of riffing, the dynamics of your music.
yes, yes, of course, and that's another really important one is the dynamics, and that's going back to like that kind of that technique thing when it comes to like certain players having that more um, pronounced kind of staccato tight style playing as opposed to a more loose playing
Hmm.
uh, because you've got to have because like if you take like some like hip hop drums for example, they're very kind of like laid back sometimes if you're going to be playing them on the drum kit. And if you want them, and if you get those hip hop drums super, super tight and someone's playing them too super
Hmm.
tight, lose something with the groove.
Sure.
And with the nature of Oreshkagor's music, it's like we only have half of a slow song. Like a half of a slow song, beginning of N3. And that's the thing, it's like I knew that even when writing the song and even performing it live, it's like I needed to have um that just enough compromise where I get this kind of deep palm mute, so I need to adjust the gate on the angle in a way, and also have just enough bass so that it kind of just has enough for the guitars, but really I want the bass guitar and the kick drum, you know, to really just
Yeah.
expand on things. And yeah, and it's important I think when you're writing music as well, so think of the overall arrangement. Because I don't want to give away too many secrets for Oreshagor's writing at the moment, but there's a lot of times where there's two guitar parts and they're playing, harmonically and note-wise, they're playing two different things, but the rhythms are exact. So it's two guitars playing two different notes for a majority of the song, but they're arranged in a way that it's still kind of tight. And a
Yeah.
big issue that I find that I found when I first started playing this seven-string guitar when I got this in 2017, so nearly 8 years now. And one issue that I had with this was getting the clarity for fast power chords,
Mm.
those kind of
Yeah.
things. And I wasn't getting that very much with the original pickup that I had in it, which was an EMG 707, which came stock with these.
Yeah.
And as soon as I got to the Fishman, it was a lot better, but it was never perfect. So then I was thinking like, hang on, maybe my approach is wrong. Maybe I'm trying to add too much. Let me take some bits away. And then I think that is also critical when it comes to the overall mix and the overall sound. It's like you've got to have just enough to get what you want, but you've got to realize that having a little bit less of what you want, a little bit less cake, you know, will help everything. Yeah, it's like you don't want things to be too sweet. You don't want things to be too spicy. You don't want things to be too salty. It's like balanced, balanced,
Sure.
balanced
Yeah.
dish. Not too much hot sauce. Not too
Right.
much, not too much ketchup on your fries. And thinking of it like that, you've got to keep a happy balance and everything. And yeah, it's difficult sometimes. It really does get difficult. Um, yeah, and the thing is like I say all this stuff, but I know nothing about like how to mix things properly. When I do all of these especially on my little short videos that you'll see on like Instagram and TikTok, like I program all the drums and I mainly what I do when it comes to mixing is just setting levels. Um, and even if it doesn't sound 100% tight or too clear, and there's probably a lot of things that'll be taken away to make the mix sound clearer. Because I kind of like the messiness, I kind of just keep it in, and it
Hmm.
works for all of the short form content that I
Sure.
produce. Um, yeah, so that's really my approach to like writing and mixing is mainly just like levels and not having the snare too loud or too overpowering, making sure you can hear just enough kicks, enough high end to the kick that you've got. I like a little bit of that tick, 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 but
Yeah.
not overly clicky. I just want that taste of it. Um, yeah, that's how I go about things. The way I engineer things is messy. Like if your band or whatever gave your stems to me to mix, it's going to sound completely different as if you went to work with uh, what's that guy's name? Uh, the guy who engineered Death Call Armageddon, Friedman.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, him. Yeah. So if you go to him and you go to me, you're going to get two completely different results, of course. And yeah, yeah. So depends.
Sure. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. That was part one of our conversation between me and Dev. If you want to watch part two, head over to his channel. The link will be down below, and hear the rest of our awesome conversation, talking more gear, recording, black metal, all that good stuff. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to both of our channels. Helps us both out a lot. We really appreciate you. Thank you.